I'll say a little more about CREI once we officially get started. I think we'll get started in about 2 minutes, but the first piece is CREI is cultivating racial equity and inclusion. And we decided to pronounce the acronym in Spanish because it means I believed.
Oh, that's good.
And we think for doing equity work and inside libraries as well as more broadly in the community, you really do have to believe.
So is there a bell that goes off, Kelly, at 1:30?
No bell, but that would be me just monitoring. People are transiting from the previous one, so let's hang on another minute, and we'll see. We can get started, and we'll still have people joining.
And we're going to talk about our project, but the background that I chose today is that actually comes from the VR 3D world they made of the Marin shipyards during World War II. And part of what they were able to do, the kids with the teachers were able to go and find the original documents for how to build a ship. They had the original documents. They found the original drawings for the housing in Marin City. So they did a lot. They used their library an awful lot to do their research and get the oral histories from the characters that they created. And so I said this would be a fitting background today to use of the shipyard from World War II.
We are at the hour.
Oh.
All right, we can get started officially.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen and we'll start our presentation. So again, my name is John MacLeod and I'm the director of XR Libraries. We're located in Novato, California. We're on a campus with a branch library, the Marin County Free Library. And with me today is Chantel Walker, who's the Assistant Deputy Director for the Marin County Free Library, but also one of the organizers of CREI here in California. And so I look at this title using XR, it sounds very academic, but we'll get through that part. So what the project is, a way out of no way, we have a community in Marin City, which is made up mostly of African-American families. And the way they came to Marin was during World War II, they had to build, we have a shipyard here, and they had to build ships and they didn't have enough workers. So over 300 families came from Louisiana and the South to come to Marin City to work in the shipyards and build ships. And a lot of the families stayed here afterwards. So last summer, when we were looking at a project to do with virtual reality and creating it with students, we came up with a thought about, well, why don't we recreate what it was like for the African-American workers at the shipyards? And when we started looking into it, we realized that there was a lot of what we call lost stories of how they weren't appreciated for their work. And so we got in contact with Chantel Walker and talked to her about CREI and how we could work together. She's going to talk a little bit about that now.
So welcome, everyone. It's great to be here with you. For me, one key thing to share and know is that this work, really looking at current technology, is the integration of things that I believe libraries do, often do well, and are constantly trying to work on doing even better.
Is the audio working for everyone?
Chantel, can you hear me, Kelly?
I can hear you, yeah.
I can't hear Chantel though.
No, I can't either.
I thought, let me text her.
Sarah is saying we can hear both. That's a
Sarah,
yeah, that's a very odd thing that we're
really?
ah. I think Chantel has left though. She might be trying to rejoin. She
Okay,
might
well,
be
while she's talking a little bit about it, so the format for what, we have a little video to explain it, but we organized a group of students from Marin City, middle school and high school students, and we worked with, we have a facility here. We broke it up into 3 sections. We had an immersive storytelling section. We hired a hip hop artist to have the students create hip hop songs about the period. And then we had some college students who worked on Unity, the programming language for virtual reality, to show them how to make 3D models and incorporate that into the virtual reality, as well as we identified 4 people who worked there, 2 women, Annie Small and Rodessa Battle, and Reverend Leon Samuels and Joseph James. And we kind of feature them in the VR where they talk about their experiences working in the shipyards. So I don't know, is Chantel back yet, or? So what it was, this was done over 3 weeks. They would come, we worked Monday through Friday. The students would come up here and we had 3 sessions, and they would go from the different sessions. They would work in the immersive storytelling. In the immersive storytelling, their role was to create the story for those 4 characters and what the script would be when they're talking in VR. So they did a lot of research. We were fortunate the libraries had oral histories from a couple of the people, and we were able to move from that to creating it. The hip hop, we had Tormund Jahi was a hip hop artist I've worked with in the past. And so he worked with the students with Christopher Jeffries to come up with songs. And they wrote 5 songs and they recorded them in hip hop. The only thing I was a little upset about is that I wanted to do some hip hop, but for some reason they wouldn't let me into the songs. They said I could listen. So they created it. And what I noticed with the teens and with the youth, this was a story. We're talking about World War II when none of them were even born, but they had to get into really researching and really learning that information about these people, where they lived and where they worked. And so this was, in some ways, it created a better learning environment than what they would get normally in high school. One of the high schools we work with here in the community, we actually took it out there last week because they're starting World War II this month. And they had the headsets on the students and they really got to understand it. And the teacher said, we go through World War II in like 4 days in high school. And this, they were able to spend a lot more time on. You back, Chantel?
I am. Thank you very much.
Okay, I was
So what I'll focus on quickly is what I see the overlap as for libraries in California. So we were able to start a statewide program with support from the California State Library and our state librarian. And our focus there was creating a community and really catalyzing work and conversations about racial equity and equity overall. And a lot of that work, while creating a racial equity plan, focused internally. Library systems, library staffing, metrics, understanding. One of the great overlaps was understanding our local history and our local story and what was visible and easy to find about equity and race and what was not, sort of a lost story. The other piece that we worked on in these cohorts was ultimately, how do we make sure community engagement is one of our strengths or a growing strength in library systems that we worked with, and that equity, diversity, and inclusion were centered while bringing in our community. And it really turned out that the work that John was doing and really envisioning with young people hands-on as creators, not just consumers, really built a connection between all of these things. It gave us a moment to say, how might a library like ours build the connection and voice of youth? How do we center racial equity in a way that's digestible, for the community members around us. We knew that members of the Marin community were interested in this work, but looking for entry points. And by creating opportunities to think about our local community, to deepen the conversation with youth, to surface the lost stories, we were able to come up with a tangible, voluntary piece of evidence that highlighted and celebrated a lost story, but also spoke to the realities of race, equity, and inclusion, and had young people offer up skills. One of the things that we hope, we had 2 years with Cultivating Racial Equity and Inclusion, CREI, as I mentioned to some of you early in the conversation, which in Spanish means I believed. We thought that in order to do this work around race and equity, you do have to believe that it's possible, and that community engagement was essential. The conversation that youth could have, the pieces that they brought in, the music, the learning, all of those components, the animation, which you'll see more about, gave young people voice, and centering it in a community, the Marin City community in Southern Marin, centering in the Marin City community really gave us a chance to engage differently with a community that we were already a part of in terms of our branch library, but to help celebrate that community's success and make it a learning opportunity for all. So that's what I'll say now, John.
Okay. So as Chantel, the media that was created here took a lot of different forms. There's a magazine written here in Marin, actually published by my wife, and they focus on racial equity. And they did a lot of in-person interviews with Alicia Garza. Otis is from KQED. We also developed an equity and diversity playbook where we identified a bunch of XR apps that spoke to equity and diversity in the experience, because I think with VR, it's more personal, it becomes more of a real event. Wonder Woman Workers, this was one of the songs that the kids wrote about the two women who worked in the shipyards. And as you see in the middle panel at the bottom, that's Annie Small, will explain what it's like to be a woman first, working in a shipyard, and then being African American. The other thing is we also partnered with another group who put together an exhibit that's in the Charleston, South Carolina Visitor Center, where you get to experience the Briggs versus Elliott bus trial that was held there in the 60s. So it shows you that the media can take different forms and be relevant to everyone involved.
I also thought it was wonderful that it was a multi-generational group
Right.
Conversation, both with elders in the community, but also with young people and with artists.
So here we're going to watch a little video about the project.
I'm Nita Gail Jones, and as a visual artist, a writer, and oral tradition storyteller, my creative process is informed by all three of those disciplines. Humans are story animals. We are made of stories. And story is survival. These kids had nothing to connect with that. And then we realized we had a very big thing that connected us, and that was the pandemic. So we did an iceberg analogy showing how World War II was like an iceberg and the coronavirus pandemic like. And it was really kind of amazing to watch the kids just connecting the things that were the same. So that was day one. We really did a deep dive with that day one. And then we just started looking at all of the materials that we had gathered. Things we did first was to create this board, a storyboard behind the 4 characters, and how much time we had for each character and who the character was talking to. It's very fast paced. We had to do it in a short period of time, but we took it through the proper process. 1 dialogue and 2 monologues and 3 pieces of narration. To me, that was very exciting because we were creating it, not only creating the content, but creating the process.
I've been working on the story chart, so pretty much coming up with the script and just other details of the mentorship and how it was working on the shipyard and all that, and like different obstacles that people had to overcome.
I think it's called A Way Out of No Way. And the young people from Marin City and other parts of the Bay that supported the project, we've given them the title of the Marinovators. I was responsible for helping to produce and co-write the soundtrack of the songs that uplift four main characters, Mr. Joseph James, Reverend Leon Samuels, Miss Annie Smalls, and Miss Rodessa Battle.
So today, while working on the soundtrack track, I basically wrote 4 bars of music, which was fun. I've never done that before.
They left down south when they came to the Bay, make a way out of the way. The shipyard work was hard with good pay, make a way out of the way. The story of our people won't be hidden away, make a way out of the way. In Marin City, where the people would stay, make a way out of the way. We talking Andy Small, Rodessa Battle, Reverend Samuels, and Joseph James. Remember those names. History tried to leave them out the books. What a trip, their significance is undeniable and Marin ship.
I'm Tim Bartolf, and I designed and facilitated a 3D modeling for VR track, where students learn the full development pipeline for creating 3D models of real-time environments. In the track, the students learn Blender 2.9 and Photoshop, as well as a host of other conceptual knowledge that they can take to any 3D art software. This was a unique opportunity to rediscover marginalized history through the power of interdisciplinary cooperation. With The Way Out of No Way, we are only just beginning to see what's possible when we integrate this approach with emerging technology.
Hi, I'm Leslie Pelle. I'm an animator for film, gaming, and virtual reality. I am responsible for the animation of the 3D modeling track. I greatly enjoyed introducing the youth to the world of real-time animation using industry-standard 3D animation software and a powerful game engine. The students implemented their voices to the narration of the 4 historical characters in the project, A Way Out of No Way, to bring the 4 3D computer-generated characters to life in a production setting. The collaboration of the 3 tracks gives a visual voice to XR Lost Stories.
Equal rights, equal pay, equal fights, equal ways, set up in an equal ways, understand, please behave.
Equal treatment, correct, equal money, equal life. Equal treatment, correct, equal money, equal life. Equal boys, equal toys. Equal boys, equal toys.
Joseph threw a protest with no punching in the party to help fund his court adjunction.
Pressure on him, but he did not crack.
Fall fighting, got his job back. The world isn't equal, we need improvement, but he put his foot down and started a movement. If we fight for our justice, honestly, we will finally achieve equality. Equal rules on life. Equal rules on life. Equal rules on life. What? Equal rules on life. Equal rules on life. What? Equal rules on life.
Equal means treat me right. Equal means treat me right. Equal means treat me right. Equal means treat me right.
Equal rights plus equal pay equals a way out of no way.
Make a way out of the way.
Ways set up in an equal ways, understand, please behave.
Equal treatment, correct, equal money, equal life. Equal treatment, correct.
So that gives kind of an overview of the project. I wanted to say a couple things about it. So in the end, when you were looking at those pictures, and we took a picture, a couple of them, the woman in the upper right here is actually the granddaughter of Rodessa Battle. In the man that was up at the podium during the slides, he's the grandson of Annie Small. So they were there and they got to come experience what this woman here, she put the VR headset on, and when she took it off, I asked her what she thought. She says, well, I don't know if my grandma would ever talk like that, but she sure would be proud to be here today. because this was a public event we did after we completed it in Marin City. There's a shopping center there. It's called Marin Gateway, and they approached us and asked if we would want to decorate some of the windows about our project. And so when we thought about it, we came back to them and said, well, we'd like to do it digitally. So the 3 screens you see in the middle here were designed by an artist, but as you can see, there's QR codes. You walk by and you can hear the songs and the stories about these people. And so at the event that we had in November of last year, there were over 200 people there attending, and about 150 of them all did the VR. We had set up the VR in that room that you saw there. So it was a community event. It was brought to the community. It was supported. There's a branch of the Marin County Free Library in this shopping center in Marin City. And so the students you see helping the people there are the web stars that Chantel talked about earlier. The songs that were made are available on iTunes and Spotify, all 5 of the songs. And then right at the end of the video, when you heard him talking, Sadvig talking about equal rights, we were nominated for a gold and silver award for the Anthem Awards, this is a first time event, and we were kind of proud that they got that this year. In the bottom right here, you see a picture at Archie Williams High School of the Comic Cat students experiencing a way out of no way, because this is their history time where they're studying World War II. What's interesting about that picture, when the principal from the school was African-American, Lysandra, came over and said, "What are you doing, John?" I told her, she said, "Well, that's how my family came here. My grandparents came from Louisiana and worked in the shipyard. And I grew up in Marin City, and now she's the principal of this high school." So it really became a community involvement, and working with CREI was great, because we'd like to take this to other California libraries or any libraries. Every community has a lost story or a group of people that have been forgotten about. And bringing this up and using the different media, especially XR, AR, or even with music, is a powerful way to get the community involved, and it worked out very well.
Yeah, I would also say for us and for the work that we were able to do as Marin County Free Library and Santa Monica Public to put together 36 libraries over 2 years across the state. Learning about history was, for many of the staff people across systems, really knowing the local history was important. Figuring out how to apply it, this gave us a real way to do that. But also it gave us, those of us who had archives, a way to connect with our archives and to connect with local history. Over time, the conversations, the racial equity plans, beginning with racial equity, having ways to connect to young people and relevant musical formats and other kinds of media formats are important. But also these untold stories of people of color exist statewide, and local libraries, as we engage and connect with our communities and continue to evolve the necessary conversations around equity and racial equity and equity along a number of vectors, we see the opportunity to have a celebratory and revelatory conversation with our community using the latest technology. So if they're excited about the high quality VR, XR, great. If they're excited to learn more about the stories, wonderful. If it inspires us and our staffs to move towards the equity and inclusion that I know many of us have been working on, even better. The synergy, libraries and library staff who are committed to inclusion for all need avenues, entry points to work with one another inside the system, but also to work with communities. And we found this to be a really valuable one. And it was an honor for us in cultivating racial equity and inclusion as a project to be a part of this work and to keep moving it ahead. I think it could be important for us as libraries.
The other important part here is that this is skill building for the youth. So they're developing the core craft skills about how to create their own XR or their own media in this new transformational technology that we're using, because they're the ones who are growing up using that material, and they're the ones who will create the content. So we're putting together now a playbook so that different libraries and communities can take part in it, and we're looking at taking this on the road a little bit and trying to do some other communities. So if any of you'd like to be involved, yeah, give it shout out to us.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that for all of us who are looking at connecting young people to work and jobs and celebrating the diverse histories of our communities, it's a real opportunity, an entry point for us to learn and for it to be digestible for the communities that we serve. Some will embrace the work and others may wonder. I also think that what we've learned for over 20 years, maybe 25, the Marin County Free Library has had a youth docent program that's worked on technology from back in the days when, in the 90s, when lots of folks were trying to figure out, how do I get onto a computer, all the way up through XR. And this feels like the next evolution. Some of those young people that we continue to work with and that we've worked with over time now work for tech companies or just got soft skills and technology experience that help them attach to the workforce and make their way to a sustainable life even better. Multiple paths.
We have a couple of questions in the chat. We have someone asking, is the media experience available only on VR headsets, or is there a web browser version accessible?
So the songs that were written have they have a soundtrack with them. The VR isn't available on a web at this point.
We have another question. Any suggestions for a colonizer descendant who can respect rap and hip hop artists and their communicative impact, but has been unable to cultivate an appreciation for it? Talking as a boomer.
You know, I think that the teens, when they put music together, depending on which teens they are, it could come out, the music could come out in any number of fashions or formats. And I think that rap was the one chosen by some of the folks here. You could find rock, you could find merengue, you could find a number of musical genres. So there are many possibilities, but also probably 6 other media entry points and looking at, you know, what the young people were doing, not all of them musical.
That's true. Look, I'm a boomer and I still liked it.
Well, I love the hip hop that they made. But again, there's something for every taste.
What was interesting, again, when they were making the songs, so they have one about Joseph James. So Joseph James is interesting. Well, they're all interesting, but he in particular, he came here from Louisiana as a saxophone player, looking for work in San Francisco. But during World War II, everyone was either in service or working. So he applied and got a job as a welder on the shipyard. So they were training him. And one of the things they told him was that he had to join the union. So he said, okay, we'll join the union. He asked how much it was, and I forget how much it was. And then they said, what are our benefits? And they told him the benefits. And he said, well, you know, the benefits we're getting, the African Americans, are half of what the white people are doing the same job. Why is that? And he was told, well, that's the way it is, man. And he didn't say anything right then, but after the war, he actually took this all the way to the Supreme Court. And the juror that helped him was third grade Marshall. And he got it passed in California to get equal pay for equal rights. So that's one of the songs the kids wrote based on that. And that whole story to show how it's evolved in the community, they've written the students in Marin City working with Performing Stars have put together a play about Joseph James and his journey up through the Supreme Court in California that will be airing in a theater in August of this year. So it's acted as a catalyst for other things.
And it's amazingly important to have the kinds of stories that your community and young people and all of us in the middle can connect with, because those are important conversations about justice, working for justice, the hidden heroes that come up. Were there other questions?
Yes, I have. Someone's asking, is there a way for someone to get access to the community learning playbook? I know that there were some factors listed in one of the earlier slides, so.
Yeah, once we have it completed, I mean, we'll send it, and we'll make it available to any libraries for them to look at. As long as you're on the mailing list, I guess if you're on the mailing list for here, you could write to us directly our email is info@xrlibraries.com. If you just said, hey, I want a copy of the playbook. We've also put together a website around lost stories called xrloststories.com, and using Marin as the first in the community as we grow across the country.
And thank you for that compliment. Young people who are engaged will and can learn will change their communities. And the collecting of stories itself is so powerful in the multiple ways that it manifests. And we have 1 minute left. Well, I want to definitely thank John as a visionary in all of this.
I don't know about that. But it just shows you an example of how the technology is emerging and how we can use it in our communities on a local level, even though it might seem overwhelming at times in how to do, how do I do that? What do I do with VR? How do I use it? How can I make it available to my community? And so those are the projects and programs that we're looking to try to expand across the country, especially within the library community.
And I think for libraries, community engagement, being community-led is incredibly important, supporting young people, their voice, their exploration, and our being able as institutions of democracy and information, our being able to really further equity and inclusion in an authentic, community-driven way is what this can give.
Okay, I think we're out of time, Kelly.
Yeah, this
Thanks.
ended quite well. Everyone got their questions answered.
Great to be here.
Well, thanks everyone for joining, and good luck in the work that you're doing with XR. And if there's anything we can help or be supportive, we'd be happy to do that. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now.
Okay, we can stop recording.
And I will stop my recording.